The wedding hall
Oh
erupted in
no, what's
chaos as
happening?
Adanna stood frozen,
Are you
the
okay?
microphone trembling in her hand, staring at the man who had destroyed her life now collapsing at the altar, clutching his chest. His new bride screamed, guests scattered, but Adanna couldn't move. 5 years of pain, humiliation, and secrets were about to explode in front of everyone. But what nobody knew, not even Adanna herself, was that this moment would unravel a web of lies so deep, so devastating, that three families would never be the same again. It all started when Chukwamika had thrown the divorce papers at her 3 years ago, his face twisted with disgust. "You're useless, Adanna. What kind of woman can't give me a child? My mother was right about you. You're cursed. Barren. Empty." She had stood there in their bedroom, the room they'd shared for 7 years, feeling each word slice through her like a blade. The walls seemed to close in on her as she looked at the photos of their wedding day still hanging on those walls, mocking her with memories of promises that meant nothing. She'd begged him, tears streaming down her face, her voice breaking with desperation. "Please, Emeka, we can see more doctors. We can try again. We can adopt. We can," but he'd already packed her bags, throwing them at her feet like she was a servant being dismissed. "I've met someone else. Someone who can actually be a wife. Someone who can make me a father. Get out of my house." The cruelty in his voice was something she'd never heard before, like he'd been storing up all this hatred for years and finally felt free to unleash it. Adanna had grabbed his arm, desperate, humiliated, but still hoping. 7 years, Emeka. 7 years of marriage. Doesn't that mean anything? He'd shaken her off like she was dirt. "It means 7 wasted years. Now get out before I throw you out." His mother, who had been listening from the corridor, had walked in with a satisfied smile. "Finally, my son sees sense. You were always bad luck for this family. From the day you married him, nothing but problems. No children, no respect, no value. Go back to your poor family where you belong." The following months were hell. Adanna moved back to her small village, back to her aging mother's compound, where the whispers followed her everywhere. At the market, women would stop talking when she passed, then resume in hushed tones that she could still hear. "That's the barren one. Chukwamika's ex-wife. Couldn't give him even one child." At church, they'd pray loudly about barren women being cursed by ancestral spirits, their eyes sliding toward her with judgment and pity mixed together in a cocktail of cruelty. Her mother, Neka, would hold her while she cried herself to sleep, night after endless night. "Don't let them break you, my daughter," Neka would whisper, stroking her hair the way she had when Adanna was a little girl. "God's time is not our time. Your season will come." But Adanna had stopped believing in seasons. She'd stopped believing in anything except the pain that woke her up every morning and followed her to bed every night. She stopped going to the market, stopped going to church, stopped seeing friends who didn't know what to say to her anymore. For 6 months, Adanna existed in a gray fog of depression, barely eating, barely sleeping, just surviving. Her cousin Amara would visit every week, forcing her to shower, to eat something, to step outside. "You're going to die in here if you don't fight back," Amara had said one day, her voice angry with love and frustration. "Is that what you want? To let him win completely?" But the real devastation came when Adanna discovered the truth during a routine medical checkup 8 months after the divorce. She'd only gone because Amara had dragged her there, worried about her weight loss and constant fatigue. The young doctor, a woman named Dr. Obiageli, had run comprehensive tests and called Adanna back a week later with results that would change everything. Dr. Obiageli had looked at her with gentle but confused eyes and said, "Adanna, there's nothing wrong with you. Your fertility is perfectly normal. Actually, you're quite healthy. Your hormone levels are excellent. Your reproductive system is functioning perfectly." Adanna had stared at her, unable to comprehend, feeling like the words were coming from underwater. But my husband said, "We tried for 7 years. He said I was the problem. His family said I was cursed." Dr. Obiageli had taken her hand carefully, her voice soft but firm. "Did your husband ever get tested?" Did he ever do a semen analysis or any male fertility tests? The realization hit Adanna like lightning, like being struck by something she should have seen all along but had been too broken to notice. Chukwuemeka had always refused, always blamed her, always made it her fault. Every doctor's appointment had been for her. Every test had been on her body. Every prayer session at his mother's church had been about her closed womb. The fury that rose in her chest that day never truly left. It burned quietly, constantly, like hot coals in her stomach. She'd spent weeks researching, making calls, using what little money she had left to hire a private investigator. What she discovered made her physically sick. Chukwuemeka had been visiting a fertility clinic for 5 years during their marriage, secretly treating his own severe fertility issues while publicly destroying her reputation. The medical records were all there, hidden but accessible if you knew where to look and had the right connections. Then came the wedding invitation, delivered by Chukwuemeka's younger brother, Adanna, who couldn't even look her in the eye. His hands had shaken as he handed her the envelope, his voice barely a whisper. "He made me do this."
"I'm sorry, Adanna."
"I'm so sorry." The card was gold embossed, expensive, mocking in its beauty. "You are cordially invited to witness the union of Chukwuemeka and Chioma." There was even a handwritten note in Chukwuemeka's familiar scrawl. "Come and see what a real woman looks like." Adanna's hands had shaken so badly, she dropped the invitation. Her mother had snatched it away, her face twisted with protective anger. "Don't go. This is meant to hurt you. He wants to parade his new woman in front of you, show everyone that he moved on while you're still here, still broken. Don't give him that satisfaction." But Adanna had smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes, a smile that scared even her mother.
"No, Mama."
"I'm going. And I'm going to look beautiful." Nneka had grabbed her daughter's face, forcing eye contact. "Adanna, what are you planning? I know that look. That's not healing in your eyes. That's revenge." Adanna had gently removed her mother's hands. "Not revenge, Mama. Justice. There's a difference. He doesn't get to rewrite history. He doesn't get to make me the villain in a story where I was only ever the victim. I'm going to that wedding, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth." The 2 weeks before the wedding, Adanna transformed herself with focused intensity. She went to the gym every morning at 5 a.m., pushing her body until it hurt, until the physical pain drowned out the emotional pain. She got her hair styled at the best salon in the city, spending money she couldn't really afford. She bought a stunning red dress that made her look like royalty, that made her feel powerful for the first time in years. Her cousin, Amara, had watched her with growing concern, seeing something almost manic in Adanna's determination. "Adanna, what are you planning? This isn't healthy. You're obsessing." Adanna had looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the confident woman staring back, this stranger with fire in her eyes. "I'm planning to walk in there with my head high. I'm planning to show him that he didn't break me." But deep inside, she knew she wanted revenge. Not the screaming, dramatic kind. The quiet, devastating kind that would expose the truth and burn his perfect life to the ground. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would stand, how she would smile. She practiced in front of the mirror until her face hurt from holding the expression. She printed multiple copies of Chukwuemeka's medical records, laminated them, organized them in a folder that she would carry in her purse. Amara had begged her not to go through with it. "Adanna, think about this. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. His whole family will come after you. They'll call you bitter, jealous, desperate." Adanna had simply replied, "Let them. At least they'll be calling me truthful." The wedding day arrived, and Adanna walked into that hall like a queen entering her kingdom. She felt every eye turn to her, heard the gasps, the whispers that rippled through the crowd like waves. Chukwuemeka's face went pale when he saw her, his confident smile faltering for just a second before he recovered. His new bride, Chioma, a young woman barely 23 with innocent eyes and a swollen belly, looked confused, probably wondering who this stunning woman was and why her presence had caused such a reaction. Adanna took her seat in the back, crossed her legs with deliberate grace, and waited. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat, but her face remained calm, serene even. She watched as Chukwuemeka kept glancing back at her throughout the ceremony, watched as he stumbled over his vows, watched as his mother's eyes kept darting toward her with pure hatred. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button because what happens next will shock you. Trust me, you don't want to miss the revenge that's coming. During the reception, Chukwuemeka's mother, the woman who had made Adanna's marriage a living hell with her constant criticism and traditional demands, approached her with a smirk that showed all her teeth. She'd clearly been drinking, her steps unsteady as she invaded Adanna's space. "I'm surprised you had the nerve to show your face here, you barren woman. Look at Chioma, already 3 months pregnant with my grandchild. See what a real woman can do? See what happens when my son marries someone worthy." The old woman leaned in closer, her breath reeking of alcohol and malice. "You were never good enough for him. I told him on your wedding day. I told him you came from a poor family, no breeding, no class. But he was young and foolish. Thank God he finally came to his senses." The words were meant to destroy her, to send her running from the hall in tears, to humiliate her one final time. But Adanna just smiled, that same cold smile, and said in a voice dripping with false sweetness, "Congratulations, Mama. I hope everything works out perfectly for you. I really do." The old woman had walked away, satisfied, triumphant, not seeing the dangerous glint in Adanna's eyes, not recognizing the calm before a devastating storm. Then came the speeches. Adanna watched as family members praised Chukwuemeka, talked about his generosity, his kindness, his patience in waiting for God to bless him with a wife who could bear children. His business partner stood up and talked about his integrity. His best friend shared stories about his loyalty. Each word was acid in her wounds, each praise a knife twisting deeper. She gripped her clutch bag tighter, feeling the envelope inside, feeling the power of truth waiting to explode. She watched Chioma, really looked at her for the first time. The girl was beautiful, yes, but there was something in her eyes, something that looked like fear dressed up as happiness. The way she kept glancing at Adanna, Chukwuemeka's brother, with a look that was too intimate, too familiar. The way Adanna couldn't quite meet anyone's eyes. Adanna filed these observations away, pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet understand, but sensed was important. When Adanna, the master of ceremonies, called for final remarks, asking if anyone wanted to share blessings for the couple, Adanna surprised everyone by standing up. The room went silent so quickly it was like someone had pressed a mute button on the world. "I'd like to say something." Her voice was steady, clear, powerful. Chukwuemeka stood up from a high table, his face red with anger and something else, fear. "Adanna, don't you dare." But she was already walking to the front, her heels clicking on the marble floor with deadly precision, each step measured, deliberate, final. Chioma looked terrified, her hand protectively over her stomach. The guests leaned forward, hungry for drama, sensing that something explosive was about to happen. Chukwuemeka started moving toward her, trying to cut her off, but his mother grabbed his arm. "Let her speak," the old woman hissed. "Let her embarrass herself one last time." Adanna took the microphone from Adanna's shaking hands, and when she spoke, her voice filled the hall with crystal clarity. "I want to congratulate the happy couple. Chukwuemeka, you finally got what you wanted. A new wife, a fresh start, a chance to build the family you told everyone I couldn't give you." She paused, scanning the crowd, making eye contact with people who had judged her, whispered about her, prayed for her downfall. "For 3 years I lived with shame. I was called barren, cursed, useless, worthless. I was divorced and sent away like trash. And I believed it. I believed I was broken. I believed God had punished me for some unknown sin." Her voice cracked slightly, real emotion breaking through the controlled facade. Several women in the audience shifted uncomfortably. But then I discovered something interesting. Something that changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my worth, about truth itself. She reached into her clutch and pulled out the envelope, holding it up for everyone to see. I discovered that I was never the problem. Medical records don't lie, Emika. And neither should husbands. Chukwuemeka was moving toward her now, his face twisted with rage and panic. Adanna, stop this right now. This is my wedding. You have no right. But Obinna held him back, whispering urgently, his own face pale with growing horror as he realized what was happening. Adanna continued, her voice growing stronger, more powerful. These are your medical records from the fertility clinic you visited secretly for 5 years during our marriage. Records showing that you have severe male factor infertility. Records showing you knew and hid it while destroying my reputation and my life. The hall exploded with gasps and shouts. People stood up, craning to see. Chukwuemeka's mother screamed. She's lying. This is witchcraft. She's a witch trying to destroy my son. But Adanna wasn't finished. She turned to Chioma, whose face had gone ghostly white, all blood draining from her young features. Chioma, I don't know you, but I hope for your sake that baby is actually yours and his. Because if it is, it would be a medical miracle given his condition.
And if it isn't?
She let the implication hang in the air like smoke. That's when Chukwuemeka clutched his chest and collapsed. The hall descended into complete chaos. People screamed, rushed forward, knocked over chairs in their panic. Someone called for a doctor. His mother threw herself on him, wailing like a woman possessed. Adanna stood there, the microphone still in her hand, watching the man who had destroyed her gasping for air on the floor. She felt no satisfaction, no joy, no sense of victory. Just a strange, hollow emptiness where all her anger had been. But then Chioma did something unexpected, something that would change the entire trajectory of the story. Instead of rushing to her husband, instead of playing the concerned bride, she walked up to Adanna with tears streaming down her face, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. She grabbed Adanna's arm with desperate hands. Is it true? The documents? Is he really? Adanna looked at this young woman, so scared, so trapped in a web she probably didn't fully understand, and nodded. Chioma's voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible over the chaos around them. The baby isn't his. It's his brother's. Obinna's. The confession hit like a bomb. Chukwuemeka couldn't. We tried for months after we started dating. Nothing. He couldn't perform half the time. Then he told me we had to make it work, that his family couldn't know, that his reputation depended on having a child, that his business deals would fall apart if people knew he couldn't. She broke down completely, her whole body shaking with sobs. So Obinna and he said it was the only way, that we'd keep it secret forever, that nobody would ever know. And I was so scared, so young, I didn't know what else to do. My family needed the bride price. They needed the money. I couldn't say no. She looked at Adanna with eyes full of guilt and pain. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what he did to you. I didn't know about you until after we were engaged. By then it was too late. Adanna felt the weight of 3 years lift off her shoulders as the ambulance arrived and paramedics rushed in, pushing through the crowd. She handed the microphone to Obinna, whose face was ashen with shock and guilt, his secret exposed for everyone to see. Without another word, Adanna walked out of that hall with her head high, her spine straight, her heart finally beginning to heal. Behind her, she could hear Chukwuemeka's mother wailing about witchcraft and curses, the guests arguing in loud voices about what they'd just witnessed, chaos consuming the perfect wedding that was meant to humiliate her. The last thing she heard before the doors closed was Obinna's voice, shaky but clear, confessing everything to his collapsed brother. Outside, under the stars that seemed brighter than they had in years, Amara was waiting by the car, pacing nervously. When she saw Adanna, she ran to her. How do you feel? She asked, searching her cousin's face for signs of regret or guilt. Adanna took a deep breath of the cool night air, felt it fill her lungs, felt alive for the first time in so long, and smiled. A real smile this time.
Free.
I feel free. Like I just set down a weight I've been carrying for so long, I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. They drove back to the village in comfortable silence, the city lights fading behind them. When they arrived at her mother's compound, Neka was waiting on the porch, wrapped in her night shawl. She didn't ask what happened. She just opened her arms, and Adanna fell into them, crying not tears of pain but tears of release, of endings and new beginnings. 3 weeks later, Adanna received the divorce settlement she'd been fighting for, including significant compensation for defamation and emotional distress. Chukwuemeka survived the heart attack, but his reputation was destroyed completely. His business partners pulled out of deals. His social standing evaporated overnight. The truth about Chioma's baby came out when Obinna, racked with guilt and unable to live with the lie anymore, confessed everything to their family in a dramatic meeting that became village legend. The marriage was annulled before it could be officially registered. Chioma went back to her family in disgrace, though Obinna promised to support the child. Chukwuemeka's mother suffered a stroke from the stress and scandal, leaving her partially paralyzed and dependent on the very son whose life she'd helped destroy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. But Adanna's story was just beginning. She used the settlement money to open a support center for divorced women in her village, a beautiful space with counseling rooms, legal aid offices, and a medical clinic. She called it Neka House after her mother, a place where women could get free legal advice, counseling, medical care, and job training. Dr. Obiageli volunteered there twice a month, running fertility awareness workshops and helping women understand their bodies. The center became known throughout the region. Women traveled from neighboring villages to get help. Adanna hired social workers, lawyers, therapists. She created a safe space where women weren't judged for their circumstances, but supported in their journey forward. Her mother, Neka, helped run the center, greeting every woman who walked through the doors with the same words she told her daughter. "Don't let them break you, my daughter. Your season will come." 6 months after opening the center, Adanna met Ikenna at a community education seminar. He was a gentle teacher who had lost his wife to illness 3 years earlier, a man with kind eyes and a patient smile. They started as friends, both understanding loss, both rebuilding their lives from ashes. He would come to the center to teach literacy classes to the women, and Adanna found herself looking forward to his arrival each week. Their friendship grew slowly, carefully, like a plant that needed gentle tending. When he finally asked her to dinner, he did it with nervous hands and a shy smile. "I know you've been through a lot. I know you might not be ready. But I'd really like to get to know you better, Adanna. Not your past, not your pain. Just you." They courted for a year, taking their time, building trust brick by brick. When he proposed, it was simple, honest, beautiful. They were at the center, watching the sunset from the porch, and he just turned to her and said, "I don't care if we have children or not. I don't care what people say or think. I just want you. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up every day knowing you're beside me. Will you marry me?" Adanna said yes through happy tears, the kind of tears she thought she'd forgotten how to cry. A year after their quiet wedding, against all odds and old medical opinions that had labeled her barren, Adanna discovered she was pregnant. The doctor called it a miracle, talking about unexplained infertility resolving itself, about stress factors and timing. Adanna called it justice, divine justice that gave her not just vindication but joy. When she gave birth to a healthy baby girl, she named her Chiamaka. God is beautiful. Because after everything she'd been through, after all the pain and humiliation and darkness, God had shown her that beauty could rise from ashes, that truth could triumph over lies, that endings could become beginnings. What did you think of Adanna's revenge? Was she right to expose Chukwuemeka at his wedding? Would you have done the same thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories every week. Your support means everything, and I love reading your comments. What other stories would you like to hear? The lesson wasn't about revenge, though it had started that way. It was about truth, about refusing to carry shame that wasn't hers, about breaking free from people who would destroy you to hide their own failures. Adanna learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting someone back. It's refusing to let them keep hurting you. It's walking away with your dignity intact, healing at your own pace, and building a life so beautiful that their cruelty becomes irrelevant, a footnote in a story that became about resilience instead of victimhood. And most importantly, she learned that her worth was never determined by what others said she couldn't do, but by who she chose to become when they tried to destroy her. She learned that justice doesn't always look like you think it will, that healing isn't linear, and that sometimes the universe rights wrongs in ways you could never have imagined. She learned that being called barren by someone else doesn't make you barren, being called worthless doesn't make you worthless, and that the opinions of cruel people are just noise that fades when you finally find your voice and learn to speak your truth. Years later, when women would come to Necca house broken and ashamed, Adanna would tell them her story. Not to brag, not to inspire revenge, but to show them that survival was possible, that transformation was real, that they could write new chapters even when others tried to end their story. And when they would ask her how she found the strength, she would smile and say, "I stopped believing their lies and started believing my truth." And that made all the difference.